Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's good to have you here, and if you're here for the first time, hit that little subscription button. I'd love to have you on board as a regular viewer. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the rugby championship match played this morning between the South African Springboks and the Argentinian Pumas from Kings Park in Durban. Well, it was all set up for the last match of this year's Rugby Championship competition in Kings Park, Durban this morning, my time, of course, South African evening time. And it was always set up to be a thrilling match that South Africa had to win by 39 points to eclipse that of the All Blacks after their win across against the Wallabies earlier in the day. So the packed stadium at Kings Park was ready for a South African win, but could they get those 39 points differentiation that they needed against the Argentinian Pumas? Well, the match started off and the first 10 or 15 minutes was a fairly hard struggle for both teams. The South African Springboks were dominating and getting a lot of possession. In fact, I think in the first 15 minutes they had about 70% of the possession. However, there was a lot of errors being made by the Springboks and they weren't able to convert that into points. It wasn't in fact until the 19th minute when they got their first try. Apple Devisa went over and scored a fantastic try for the Springboks in the 19th minute to put them out to 7 points to 0. You always thought the floodgates could possibly open up in this match because the Springboks knew what they had to do against the Pumas. And we saw the Pumas capitulate against the All Blacks. So it was just a matter of whether or not the Pumas had turned up with some energy and some spirit for this match, or was South Africa going to take them to the sword? Well, a couple of things happened. There was a lot of penalties in the first part of the game. In fact, in the first 23 minutes of the match, there was 9 penalties. And it really set the scene for the entire game, which I will summarise, of course, at the end. But it started to set the scene that this was going to be a stop-start encounter. One of the things that also started to happen in the first half was Francois Steyn started to miss some kicks for touch, and this became quite a frustrating thing for the South African forwards in particular, who were playing so well and getting so much territory. When you've got your number 10 not able to find touch after you've done a lot of hard work, it must be disheartening for those players who are doing all of that hard work. And it wasn't until one stage where Willie Leroux actually stepped up and took a kick for touch instead of Francois Steyn that the message was really on the board. And I think Francois Steyn overall did himself not many good chances for a possible World Cup selection for next year in this particular match. In the 28th minute, there was a great try by Kolisi. The South African captain stepped up when his team and nation needed him once again and scored a brilliant try, which took South Africa out to 14-0. And I think at that stage you started to think that South Africa had a really good opportunity here. Let's face it, they only needed to score another try or so before half-time, and they were already halfway to where they needed to be to win this particular championship. Francois Steyn got a penalty kick in the 38th minute, and that put them ahead 17 points to 0. And I think it was a good decision to take the points at that stage because the South Africans had been trying to get to the Argentinian line. They'd made a few errors, they weren't converting into the points, so they decided to take that penalty kick just before half time. So after the Francois Steyn penalty in the 38th minute, everybody probably thought that the South Africans were going to go into half-time at the same score as what the All Blacks did against the Wallabies at 17-0. However, there was an Argentinian try in the 40th minute, and I think this really changed the nature of the game. Bertrand, the Argentinian halfback, went over for a great try in the 40th minute, and it brought the Argentinians back to 17 points to 7. Now, South Africa dominated that first half, but they'd made some silly errors at crucial times, which stopped them from getting a lot more points than what they could have done. The other thing that happened in that first half was the Argentinians were facing the yellow card, and we really thought that more yellow cards in the second half were going to be a major problem for the Argentinians. So we were all wondering who was going to turn up in the second half. Was it going to be the South African Springboks running away with this game and winning the Rugby Championship? Or were we going to have a fight back again from the Argentinian Pumas? Well, unfortunately for our South African fans, the Argentinian Pumas came out with a much higher level of intensity in the second half, and they scored a try in the 47th minute, coming back to 17 points to 14. Gonzalez got that try for the Argentinians, and at that stage the South African head started to go down a little bit. It was always going to be the case that South Africa had to chase this game, and there's a lot of pressure on them to do so, and I think that's why we had this telling performance by Francois Steyn in this particular match, because you could tell that he was under pressure, trying to position his team to get as many points as they could. So we had a penalty try also for South Africa in the 55th minute, and it ended up being the third yellow card of the match when De La Fuente went off for Argentina. Now, the yellow cards were predominant in this match, and I must say in the second half it really destroyed the game. I've mentioned in previous videos that World Rugby has to have a look at this. We want to see rugby at its best standard, flowing games, non-stop games with 15 players aside on the pitch all the time. That has to be the only way forward for World Rugby. We can't have games being won by referee decisions and also by players being sent off. 60th minute, Estebeth got sent off, so South Africa were down another man. And again, as I say, this started to happen all the time. In the 66th minute, Faf de Klerk got sent off for South Africa. So within 6 minutes, South Africa had 2 men in the sin bin. In the 65th minute, a try by Argentina got them right back into this match. Moroni got over uncontested because South Africa were down to 13 men at that stage, and he just waltzed in for a try, bringing the score back to 24-21. And it was at this stage where you thought, well, all the hopes of South Africa winning the Rugby Championship for 2022 have gone out the window, and now they needed to focus on just winning this particular match. In the 73rd minute, a penalty try to South Africa, putting them out to 31-21, and yet another yellow card. So in total, 6 yellow cards in this match. It wasn't until the 81st minute that South Africa scored a late try to Kurt Lee Andres in the corner, and that was our final score, 38 points to 21 in this match. So South Africa came up short, unfortunately, in the Rugby Championship this year, but overall I think the Rugby Championship was a great competition this year. After those first few weeks, we didn't know what was going to happen. Argentina got 3 wins, and they did very, very well by beating New Zealand in New Zealand for the first time. And I think it kept us on edge right down to round number 6, where both New Zealand and South Africa had a chance of winning the Rugby Championship this year. Will it be a series that will be remembered by its refereeing decisions? Probably so. It's something that World Rugby has to have a look at and see if they can sort this out before the World Rugby Cup next year. We're seeing too many infringements, we're seeing the game not flowing long enough, and we're seeing too many yellow cards. So for me, it took away a lot of the spectacle of what the game of rugby should be about, and World Rugby need to have a really good look at this. Actually, we saw that in both New Zealand and in South Africa today. South Africa were the better team, no doubt about that, in beating Argentina, and New Zealand were the better team in beating the Wallabies today. So let me know what you think of this game between the South African Springboks and the Argentinian Pumas. Did you think the South African Springboks were going to get up after the first half score? And what do you think of the Argentinian Pumas comeback? What do you think of this yellow card situation in World Rugby at the moment? But more importantly, what do you think needs to be done? We can all complain about it, but what are the solutions that need to be put forward in terms of the rules and in terms of the referees' interpretations? I've really enjoyed bringing you this Rugby Championship series this year. I hope you've enjoyed my video reviews. I've tried to be as neutral as I possibly can as a Kiwi. Obviously, I'm very excited that we've won this competition. We played very well against the Wallabies today, but we have a lot of work to do, and I think there's a lot of strong teams in World Rugby at the moment, which is very good for the game. And let's hope that the officials of the game can raise their standard to that of the players, and then we're going to have an extraordinary World Cup next year. I'm going to be following the Six Nations competition this year, as well as the All Blacks tour to the Northern Hemisphere. So if you want to stick around for some more rugby reviews from me, hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you come along for the ride. And don't forget to send me your comments today on this match between the Springboks and the Pumas. Love to hear what you think. Were you a disappointed Springbok fan? What do you think needs to happen to your team? Is there a change of coach required, or is it more a case of looking for players in different positions? Francois Steyn, as I said, had a difficult day out today, Jesse Creel played fantastically when he gets the ball, but he's not getting the ball enough. So do these players need to see more action? All these questions, I guess, for the South African fans. I'd love to hear from you and tell me your thoughts. Well, that's it for this video. I'll be back again soon with another one. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy your rugby, and I'll see you again soon.